Greetings, everyone, and welcome to a Fireside Chat with Zany Mystic. I'm your host, Lance White. Tonight, I'm delighted to have Dr. Carmen Boulter return to the show. Carmen is the creative fire behind the Pyramid Code. She's the director, producer, and writer of the series. Carmen has had an unshakable passion for Egypt, traveling there at least 27 or more times by now. And Carmen is also the author of Angel and Archetypes, an evolutionary map of feminine consciousness. She is presently preparing for a very special, groundbreaking trip to Egypt on 11/11/11, where her group has been granted permission for private time inside the Great Pyramid. She's also working on 2 new books, one co-authored with William Henry. To find out more about this once-in-a-lifetime trip, go to www.pyramidcode.com. But now, let's welcome Carmen back to the show. Hi, Carmen. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Lance?
I'm good, too. Now, let's just see how good we are tonight. You've been very busy since we last spoke. I was amazed to find out that you're just doing so much. Would you like to fill us in on some of the details so we can find out what you're up to? Because it's always exciting. Your life is an exciting life.
Well, on Thursday I received a contract from New Page Books, and I'm co-authoring a book with Zahi Hawass called Aliens in Ancient Egypt.
Ooh.
And it's due, our draft is due on January 15th, so it's going to come out in 2012, and I think pretty much everybody's ready to talk about that. So we'll be looking at the Amarna period and the distended skulls and the anomalies and how Hatshepsut talks about being a star seed and how all that happened. So the book with William Henry is called Lost Keys of the Sacred Feminine, Decoding Dendera.
Wow.
And that's looking at the newly cleaned ceiling of Dendera that used to be like looking into coffee, and you couldn't see much more than outlines, and there's incredible precision. And some pictures from that are on my website.
Oh, good.
And the other thing I'm doing is I just saw today for the first time the architecture for interactiveu.com, which is an online learning and social action network. So I've been teaching online for 10 years. At a university in Taiwan and at the University of Calgary, and both those contracts are over, so I'm going freelance, and I've got 12 faculties and 4 courses in each, and mostly professors who are tired of the school system and the workings of institutions as opposed to true education and focus on students.
Right.
And so that's going to roll out. There's a lot of internal building that has to happen, but that's going to be rolling out soon.
Oh, good.
I'm doing a pre-course called the Pyramid Code through Evolver Intensives, and that'll be November 27th to January 15th. So as soon as I come back from Egypt, that'll roll out. So it's really something. People are enjoying online learning. Evolver Intensives has been getting as many as 500 people per course.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and this is going to be their 5th course. And they launch things well in advance and do a lot of publicity on it. So I'm excited about all those projects for sure.
Good. Well, now, is there a lot of preparation to do? I read the itinerary for the 2-week trip to Egypt, and why did you, I'm going to ask you the question, why you chose the propitious time of 11/11/11, and also what kind of intent you have in terms of what you want to accomplish with the group inside the pyramids and outside the pyramids.
Well, it's a 3-trip process, so we were there already at 10-10-10.
Oh.
And that was the resurgence of the sacred feminine, finally and completely. All of these are ascension portals, so 11-11-11 is a gateway, and it's also really close to the end of the last step it's past the last step of the Mayan calendar. According to Joseph Kalaman, it's the end of the 9th wave on October 28th.
Oh, right.
So we're really going to be into some interesting energy.
Yeah.
And then 12-12-12 is, again, another ascension portal. And I had been to Egypt for 12-12 when Pluto went out of Scorpio into Sagittarius in 1994 with 278 people. And so it seems fitting to do that again at this juncture, but then at the alignment on December 21st, 2012, at sunset Giza, which is where the exact alignment happens, we'll be outside around the pyramid. And my vision is to have enough hands to hold all the way around the Great Pyramid. We'll see if we can do that.
Wow.
It's a nice idea. I may have some Egyptians in there as well.
Oh, that'd be wonderful. That'd be wonderful.
So we're in there at 1. We're in the Great Pyramid on 11/11 at 1:11. We go in there at 1 o'clock, so we'll be settled. And it really is about dropping, letting go, and not looking back anymore. I think we've been spending a long time understanding the problem. You know, chemtrails meets pharmacological, pharmaceuticals, and everything else in between, war and bloodbath and killing from death. And I think we need to look forward now.
Yeah.
Blood for life and into restructuring a model for an empowered humanity.
Yeah.
And so I see that as a real gateway to that.
Yes, I totally agree with you. And it seems that a lot of people are saying something very similar to that it's time to turn away from the problem and move into creative solutions and imagining what it is, what kind of world we'd like to have, and what kind of world, isn't working presently. And obviously that's just about everything that's being done by the controllers. So we know that doesn't work, and there's no question about that now. We've had billions of years to experience it, and it has never worked and continues to break down. It works for them in terms of controlling the masses, but unfortunately the masses don't get a very good break out of all that. So now, your book with William Henry, I know he does a lot of work with stargates. He's very interested in stargates. Have you followed some of his writings?
Oh, absolutely. I've been following his work for a long time, which was kind of a natural thing for us to work together. What you see on the ceiling and I'm not talking about the round zodiac that's been on the ceiling of Dendera all along. I'm talking about the first hypostyle hall, which just used to be the brown, and now they've cleaned it. And when you look at it, it's a star map, it's a zodiac, it's looking at the precessional cycle, and it's got all these so-called solar boats that look like wormholes if you look at the physics of it, with various beings moving through and stars above them. Wow. So Stargate, it certainly makes sense, but it's a multidimensional reality. But then you see these curious beings in other sections of that same temple that have like a body double or a body triple.
Oh.
And so we're looking at, how the ancient Egyptians were really well versed in moving between dimensions, but also understanding what happened when we dropped our earthly clothing and carried on as a spirit being, and then how we reincarnated and what that was all about. And so I think that we're becoming more well versed in a vocabulary that will take us into an understanding of a completely expanded and sophisticated way of being and thinking that the ancient Egyptians were really had a lot of prowess with. And so we tend to look through our patriarchal lenses and, tell ourselves we're the smartest we've ever been, and that's just not adding up anymore.
No, of course not. It's actually the opposite.
That's right.
But so, stargates are, I've heard also that there are a lot of people that are looking to various events going on during this time. Some are already starting to experience out-of-body experiences, and I wouldn't be surprised if there were going to be many things to talk about, or to experience that will be beyond the norm if we're open to it.
Well, and I think it's already started. It's not like there's a line you draw in the sand and then, we're dense on one side of the line and take one step and all of a sudden we're completely enlightened.
Right.
I think that we've been lifting the veils, and the collective has been getting more involved in these ideas of out-of-body experiences, and some of us have been having them for decades. But when more and more people are experiencing that and understanding how the energy is shifting them, then it like I said, it moves into the collective. And instead of the collective unconscious, as Jung talked about, I think it's becoming collective consciousness. And more people are well-versed in the issues that we've been facing and have an innate sense of what we should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the powers that were that are blocking things. And, I've been saying every time I've been on the air with you, their time is done. They may be still sitting in their seats of Congress or whatever, but it's high time they got out of there and made way for something new. But part of the issue is we haven't spent a lot of time creating this model for an empowered humanity. It's been too much of disempowering everyone.
Right. And as I understand it, we were the ones that contracted with them in the first place to create the experience of duality here, and they simply got attached to the position of being godlike in relation to us and having all the keys to the kingdom, and now they don't want to give them up. It's like, they stole Daddy's Cadillac, and they're not going to give it back. So,
well, I think we're going to see some pretty twisty-turny, magical events that are going to shift things, and nobody knows how it's going to happen.
Yeah, I absolutely right. I used to think I had some clues, but the more I'm around, the more I say, I don't know. I have no idea what will happen. Anything is possible. Mm-hmm. And into anything and everything. So,
well, and also there's been all these, stories from the mainstream media. They give us a story, and then, internet conspiracy theories will, break that down and say it's something else. Like I'm even thinking about the Twin Towers and thermite and an explosion, and then somebody comes along and says it was none of that.
Right.
Both. The conspiracy theory and the other one, maybe the conspiracy theory is a little more plausible, but we've really been kept in the dark, and there's been an awful lot of holograms and, projections and Project Blue Beam and fake UFO sightings, and they're going to come and get us, and all the stuff about Elenin that I never really bought into at all.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it fizzled. And so we really are getting more and more opportunities to get mixed up, which is why what we need to do is cultivate our own sense of discernment.
Yeah.
Where do we feel that in our body? I think everybody knows when they're being lied to, and you may kind of dance around that and say, oh, well, maybe I'm making that up. But, it doesn't feel good to be lied to, and it also doesn't feel good to be confused. But one of the main tactics that they've used against us is confusion and absurdity. And there's plenty of that around. Right.
And as has been pointed out, they use a problem, reaction, solution as a formula, and simply repeating the same mantra, over and over and over. If you say it enough times, then people just automatically buy into it. I mean, they get brainwashed into believing that that's the way it is. If you say something enough times, even when it's been proven to be wrong. So,
right. Well, it's repetition. But the other thing is that there's 5 major corporations: Disney, AOL, Time Warner, and they control everything. The media, in terms of TV, movies, print media, books, and magazines. Yeah. And so they've got their agenda, and when you see the same storyline through all of those things, newspapers as well, radio, and you go, well, it must be true. Internet stands alone, and then they put agents into places on Internet to put little seeds of misinformation around, and then we may say, okay, 85% of it's right, but which 15% of it's wrong?
Right.
Without teaching people how to wake up their own discernment.
Yes.